Amalgam is one of those absolutely insane concepts that almost 30 years later I am shocked ever happened. I mean, Marvel and DC were both at points when they were very much struggling with money, and a lot of that had to do with the rise of Image and that comic bubble bursting. But they were both desperate and they did crossovers. They actually did a lot of crossovers because it wasn't just Marvel versus DC. Like, we got JLA Avengers, Avengers JLA, and I think there's a separate one where Batman directly crossed over with the X-Men. Like, for about 10 years, there was a lot of Marvel and DC crossover. But originally, it was Marvel versus DC, and it was a lot of fan voting that helped lead to the results. And then one world was going to be destroyed, but to save both, they were merged together by, what was his name? Access? I think Access was the one that did it. Merged the worlds together and created Amalgam. An insane concept no one really could have predicted, and one that people keep talking about coming back today. And it won't. I mean, I think maybe eventually both companies might get desperate enough, but I'm like, Disney and Warner Brothers, I don't see them working together to create a new Amalgam. I don't think I can't see them working together to make a new Marvel versus DC. I can't even see them working together to make a Marvel versus DC game. Like, it's just not something I see happening. Like, these companies aren't so desperate that they need that money, because they're also gonna make less money off of that sort of thing. Like, it has to sell for a game and even for a comic. They both have to sell exponentially more than either of the regular ones work. A Marvel game just has to hit a certain amount. Marvel versus DC has to hit a much higher amount for everyone to make the same. So I don't see it happening. It just doesn't make any logical sense. I mean, even though I would love to see it. Like, Amalgam back then was cool, but a modern Amalgam? Winter Soldier didn't exist back then. Red Hood didn't exist. Jason Todd was a dead character that was merged with Deathlock to just make Deathlock. You know, now you've got Red Hood, you've got Winter Soldier. Emma Frost went from being kind of a random nobody villain to a very prominent member of the X-Men. You know, and even Iron Man would have a higher placement these days. Like, he merged with Green Lantern, which was a good choice, but like, he's gone from being kind of the another Marvel guy, one of the Avengers that you're aware of, to actually being one of the top names in all of Marvel. You know, DC has really elevated a lot of their secondary characters, so it would be a whole new dynamic. And it'd be interesting to see, like, if they would just merge Avengers with Justice League, or if they would again go with the X-Men and the Justice League. Like, there's so many cool ideas to be explored in all of that. But I don't think they'll ever get around to doing it. Instead, I'm a little more surprised that Marvel, or specifically Disney and Warner Brothers, have never done like their own internal amalgam. And no, I don't mean like when the Justice League merged with the Titans, or when Marvel did Infinity Warps and all of their characters merged. Clearly, they understand that amalgamations are still popular. And so they're doing them kind of within that. But like, Warner Brothers also has Mortal Kombat and Hanna-Barbera. Which, on that note, I'm also surprised that Hanna-Barbera hasn't been more completely introduced into the DC universe. Maybe they're saving it for like another time when things tank, and then Space Ghost will enter and start leading like a Space Justice League. Birdman will start crossing over with Hawkman and comparing heritage. You know, maybe they're just waiting on that. But Marvel, Disney, also has, well, Disney, but Star Wars and Marvel. So I'm surprised they haven't started trying to jump on things like crossing those over, like doing verses and amalgamations. I think the DC one would be more interesting. I'm not as interested in Marvel and Star Wars. I think there could be some good stories there, but I'm not as like excited about the idea of seeing who does Darth Maul merge with. You know, who does Darth Vader merge with? Is it Vader and Doom? Is it like Darth Doom? I'm a little more interested in the idea of DC Comics merging with Mortal Kombat. And it's probably because it's a little easier to get in my mind because we had Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe. And I'm still surprised that it seems like they're doing Mortal Kombat 12 instead of Mortal Kombat versus Injustice or an actual Marvel game. I was way off on those predictions. Maybe it's from NetherRealm making Injustice, and maybe it's from Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe. But I think it'd be really cool to see amalgamations of Mortal Kombat and DC characters. And I'm really surprised that no company's tried to do that yet. Like, any company that's got multiple properties like this, like, you clearly know that amalgam is still kind of a popular idea. You like doing it. Justice League and Titans, Infinity Warps. Like, the companies like to do this within themselves, but why not cross over and do this with their other brands? Why not cross over anyway? We haven't gotten DC versus Mortal Kombat in the comics, but we get Justice League Power Rangers. So they'll cross over with other companies' stuff, but not with all of the properties they immediately have available. So that one's a little weird to me, but maybe they are talking about it and saving it up for something. Maybe there's an eventual expectation. I know everybody expects that Marvel and Star Wars are going to eventually cross over. Like, it's Disney. It feels inevitable no matter how separate they're keeping them. And I just don't feel like you have as much versatility to try to cross over something like Hanna-Barbera and DC. I feel like a lot of those would be more redundant. Like, it makes more sense to integrate Hanna-Barbera into the DC universe than it does to, like, merge them. But I think that'd be awesome to see, is like, forget trying to get Marvel and DC to cooperate and cross over, because I just don't see that happening. But so many companies own so many different properties that I would love to see these more internal amalgamations between the properties they do have, because those are so much simpler to pull off. And I think there's definitely a way to make DarkCon cool. Just don't design them the way you did. Done. I should try making that at some point. A cool version of DarkCon. But yeah, I would love to see a modern version of Amalgam. And I feel like that's as close as I would ever get. So I would be very happy with that. And if they're going to keep doing all these different crossovers, if Power Rangers and Turtles and Power Rangers and Justice League and Batman and the Turtles, if they're all going to keep crossing over, then let's amalgamate some of those a little bit. And just see how that comes out.